Before the end, Chelsea got a goal. Boyle centred, Tambling headed in.
He gave Chelsea more goals than anyone in history. Bobby Tambling. He held the crown before the lights came on, scored 202 times, captained the club before the songs, before the silver, before the world noticed. He was Chelsea's fire when no one called it fire. The spine of the 60s, when the badge still bled in black and white. And when the final goal was scored, they let him walk. No chant, no statue, no homecoming, just silence. They remembered Osgood, they praised Greaves, they raised banners for names that came later. But Tambling? They let his name fall behind the curtain even as his record stood, untouched, for 47 years. He never demanded a tribute, never asked for a crown. He just kept scoring. Quietly, relentlessly, until history stopped counting. But silence doesn't erase greatness. And absence doesn't mean unworthy. Bobby Tambling, the first king of Stamford Bridge, the name that built a legacy and watched it forget him. Subscribe if you believe some men carried the game before the game was ready to carry them. Robert Victor Tambling, born 18th September 1941 in Staines, Middlesex. A quiet street, a working-class home, and a boy who didn't speak much but moved like the game had already chosen him. He wasn't built like a star, didn't play for cameras, didn't chase cheers. He chased the net, and found it again and again. Chelsea saw it early. Ted Drake signed him as a schoolboy, not because he dazzled, but because he disappeared behind defenders before they even saw him coming. By 1959, at just 17, he was handed his debut. His first match came in March 1959 against West Ham. No build-up, no protection, just a shirt and the impossible weight of replacing Jimmy Greaves. Most would have crumbled. Tambling didn't blink. He scored like it was breath, moved like he saw space a second before it existed. Never pointed to his name, never chased applause. He just walked back to halfway quiet, locked in, already thinking about the next one. He didn't talk legacy. He laid its first bricks. He didn't walk into glory. He walked into rubble. Because the Chelsea Bobby Tambling inherited wasn't a giant, it was a broken club gasping for breath. The early 1960s were chaos. 1 year in the first division, the next fighting for survival. No stars, no system, no spine, except one. Tambling. He didn't posture, didn't panic. He just kept scoring. And in 1962-63, when Chelsea stood on the edge, he gave them 37 goals, dragging them back to the first division by sheer force of will. No celebration, no chest pounding. Just boots in the mud and a striker who refused to let the badge fall. He wasn't surrounded by greatness. He became the reason others believed it was possible. And his reward? He kept going. Top scorer every season. From 1960 to 1966, he carried Chelsea through the storm with consistency history rarely applauds. And in 1967, he led them all the way to the FA Cup final. A moment that should have crowned him. But the trophy went to Spurs, and history moved on. He didn't shout, didn't beg for credit. He just kept leading. Week after week, goal after goal. No flash, just fire. He gave Chelsea everything. Goals, loyalty, years. He captained the club, carried them through the storm. Broke records without ever asking for records to be kept. But when England came calling, they barely let him in. 3 caps. 1 goal. That was all they gave Bobby Tambling. He got his first chance in 1962, scored against France on 27 February 1963. Looked like he belonged. Then, silence. He wasn't injured, wasn't out of form, he was just left behind. Because in that era, shirts went to names, not to form. Greaves, Hurst, Hunt, all brilliant, all chosen. Tambling, too quiet, too humble, too overlooked. While others made history in '66, Tambling kept scoring at Stamford Bridge with no cameras watching, no complaints, no interviews, just goals. Again, again, again. He didn't chase attention, didn't play for headlines, and in that world, if you didn't sell yourself, you sat. He was good enough. But England chose flash, and left consistency outside. In 1970, at just 29, Bobby Tambling walked away from Chelsea. No parade, no chants from the shed end, just a quiet move to Crystal Palace and a legacy already starting to fade. He wasn't past it. He wasn't broken. But the game had turned the page before reading what he'd written. At Palace, the goals slowed. The injuries came. The noise got quieter. And Chelsea? They never truly looked back. No formal goodbye, no proper send-off, just absence. So the man who gave Chelsea 202 goals left without ever hearing them say thank you. After Palace, he crossed the sea signing for Cork Celtic in Ireland. Different league, different crowd, same boots, same silence. He kept playing, kept scoring, kept showing up. And in the 1973-74 season, he helped Cork Celtic lift the League of Ireland title. A medal in a country that welcomed him more than the one he left behind. He didn't fade from football. Football faded from him. Because the game only celebrates those who stay visible. And Bobby Tambling? He was never built for the lens. After the goals dried up, after the headlines stopped calling, Bobby Tambling vanished from the world he gave everything to. He stayed in Ireland, settled in County Cork, played a few more years with Cork Celtic, and then he disappeared from the English game altogether. No coaching badge, no media career, no hero's return, just silence and faith. He became a lay preacher, spoke in churches, not stadiums, held scripture in one hand, memories in the other. While Chelsea rose to global fame, while legends came and went under the lights of Stamford Bridge, Tambling lived quietly, watching it all from a distance. He battled illness, cancer, Parkinson's. The kind of suffering the headlines never write about because they had already moved on. There were no tribute games, no campaigns to honor him. For decades, he wasn't just forgotten. He was invisible. And still, he never complained. Never called for recognition. Never stood up and asked to be seen. He had done his part, and that was enough. It stood for 47 years. A record no one touched. No modern striker came close. Not Hasselbank, not Zola, not even Drogba. Every goal Chelsea celebrated, every name they praised still hadn't reached Tambling. Until 11th May 2013. Frank Lampard. Away at Aston Villa. Goal number 203. Tambling's crown finally passed. But what happened next, that mattered more. Because when the record fell, Bobby Tambling was there to witness it. Ill, frail, fighting Parkinson's, fighting history itself. He was flown in from Ireland, given a wheelchair ovation at Stamford Bridge, and for the first time in decades, they said his name out loud. The fans rose, the past returned, and the man who had once walked away in silence was finally applauded by the club he had carried. Lampard himself bowed to him, called him a gentleman, said, "Bobby paved the way." And in that moment, after half a lifetime of being left out, Bobby Tambling came home. They clapped when he returned, they smiled when he waved, but when the moment passed, they let him fade again. There was no statue, no mural, no banner flying at the bridge, just a suite quietly named after him, a gesture. Inside Stamford Bridge, hidden from most fans, not a legacy. Because Bobby Tambling never became part of the story they told. Not in documentaries, not in chants, not in the modern myth of Chelsea. He was the top scorer for nearly 5 decades, club captain, FA Cup finalist, promotion hero, and yet, no young fan is taught to speak his name. They remember the noise, the money, the medals, but not the man who gave them consistency, silence, and glory in an era without reward. He didn't play for brands, he played for the badge. And when the time came to honor that, Chelsea whispered instead of roared. In 2005, they finally named him in the club's greatest 11. Years too late. Still no statue, still no stand. No testimonial, no send-off, just gone. Not until 2010, 4 decades later, did they give him one, against Celtic. Too late to matter. Or maybe just late enough to say, we remember. In 2019, the club quietly added his name to the shed wall of honor, a small plaque, years overdue. And in 2023, he returned once more, this time to Cobham, visiting the players as the old soul of the club they forgot. They remembered him eventually, but only in pieces. Too little, too late, because history likes volume, and Tambling never made any. But make no mistake, his name should be carved in stone. He gave his youth, his goals, his silence, and his loyalty. And what he got back was a footnote. He didn't need fireworks, didn't need fame. He just needed the net, and he found it 202 times. That number still echoes, not just in the stats, but in the silence that followed. Because Bobby Tambling didn't just hold a record. He held Chelsea together when there was no spotlight, no superstars, no promises. He led without shouting, scored without celebrating, stayed when others left, and when it was all over, they let him go. No roar, no banner, no crown. But legends don't vanish. They wait for someone to speak their name again. And now we speak it properly. Robert Victor Tambling, the first king of Stamford Bridge, the man who gave Chelsea its backbone, its belief, its beginning. Before the millions, before the music, before the medals, there was Bobby, and his final goal wasn't the one that crossed the line, it was the one that reminded us who built the road we now celebrate. He didn't chase legacy, he became it. Subscribe if you still believe football was built by the men who walked away quietly after giving it everything.